Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. Tensions are rising ahead of the Ulchi Freedom Shield drills starting August 18th. North Korea warns it will defend itself if red lines are crossed, while calling the exercises a real nuclear war simulation. Yet in a rare gesture, Pyongyang has also taken down on some of its border loudspeakers after South Korea removed theirs. Kim Jong-un's daughter, Kim Joo-ae, is appearing more often at military events, stirring succession's talk, and Washington and Seoul prepare for a key summit. The North Korea is tightening military ties with Russia, pledging thousands more personnel by year's end. So to help us break down into the latest developments and what's driving these moves, we're joined here in the studio by Dr. Go Myong-hyun, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for National Security Strategy. Good to be with you.
Good to be back.
And also joining us from New York is Dr. Mark Barry, Associate Editor Emeritus at the International Journal on World Peace. Good to see you.
Yes, good to see you too.
So let's start a discussion with Dr. Go. In a couple of days, the Ulchi Freedom Shield drills will bring in U.S. Marines and UN command troops. So Pyongyang, like I've said, has warned it will exercise sovereign self-defense if red lines are crossed. How would you read into the latest statements?
Well, I think there's clearly a little bit of change within continuity from North Korea. This is a part of a strategic communication on the part of Pyongyang. So I think there's been a change of tone on the part of North Korean regime since Kim Mok-yeon issued a statement, a later statement last month, late July, stating, essentially criticizing South Korean government, again warning Washington and Seoul not to stage joint military exercises. But interestingly enough, Kim Mok-yeon, Kim Jong-un's sister, stated that he might be interested in resuming dialogue with Washington. And since then, reflecting also the fact that there's a new administration in Seoul, North Korea has been changing its tone, its statements towards not just Seoul, but also to Washington. So this is a typical diplomatic move, not just by North Korea, but many other countries. So essentially it's cabling, or telegraphing signals to each interlocutors in Seoul and Washington that it might be open for dialogue, but then they are being very tentative, very careful, because North Korea starts from a baseline where they stated many times that they're not interested in dialogue, so they cannot really engage in this sudden change of heart or change of face, I would say. So they are making these deliberate moves to change not just the expectation on the part of Washington and Seoul, but also to make it seem like they are not risking too much. They're not too eager to engage in dialogue with the United States and South Korea. But I think it's being interpreted very positively. I think the State Department in Washington already issued welcoming remarks in this regard, that they are clearly very interested in resuming dialogue. So I think this is a very positive sign, even though we have to take it very cautiously, that North Korea might be disengaging from its previous stance of being confrontational with Seoul and Washington.
Right. So though it's not a very strong move, still the tone is quite noticeable, the shift in that. Now, staying with these drills, the North's defense minister calls them a real nuclear war simulation that will make the Korean Peninsula less safe. Dr. Barry, do you think this is meant to deter the drills, or rally the public, or sway foreign opinion? What do you think was the purpose?
I think this is Kim Jong-un's way of reminding President Trump that, hey, when we last talked, you had more or less canceled all of your exercises, number one. Number two, we had agreed to curtail all the intermediate range and long range missile tests on North Korea's part, and there was a respectful relationship there. And yet, right now, the official U.S. policy is that it looks very similar to Biden's policy, which is that the Trump administration at this point is saying that it wishes to pursue the complete denuclearization of North Korea. So basically, neither side is giving up its cards. But I agree with the way Dr. Go characterized it, which is that I think in an organic way, North Korea is trying to slowly glide towards a certain position of being more flexible. And the fact that the U.S. is, in fact, postponing officially because of weather some of the exercises in Ulchi Freedom Shield is a tentatively good sign. But I think a lot of things could shake open and break open with the Alaska meeting if it takes place on Friday between Trump and Putin.
Mm-hmm. Now, staying with the latest exercises, some of the field training exercises have been actually postponed to September, though North Korea hasn't really mentioned it yet. Do you think this kind of decision could affect Pyongyang's military stance, Dr. Go?
Well, it depends on how North Koreans are going to take this. I mean, if North Koreans are trying to read signs from Washington that they are disposed to dialogue with North Korea, then I think they are definitely going to take this positively. We have to understand that one of the major demands on North Korea to restart the dialogue between Washington and Pyongyang was for the United States and South Korea to suspend joint military drills. So even though scaling down the military drills by separating field training exercises from command post exercises doesn't quite match North Korean demand 100%. North Koreans, if they are again trying to see positive signs in this, then they're going to take this as a welcoming or response on the part of President Trump, that President Trump might really mean what he says about being interested in resuming dialogue with Kim Jong-un. So yes, I think in that sense, I think it leaves enough space for North Korea to take this positively and also incentivize them to take the next step, which is to clarify their position regarding dialogue with the United States, even though we know there's a huge gap between what North Korea wants from this hypothetical round of negotiation with the United States and what the United States is ready to give. So essentially, everything hinges upon whether the United States will finally grant North Korea what North Korea has been seeking for many decades, which is the status as a nuclear state. That seems to be kind of wanting. So the gap is very big right now between the two positions. But regardless, I think this back and forth going on between Pyongyang and Washington seems to indicate that maybe the North Koreans are finally, as Dr. Berry has indicated, they are willing to be flexible and essentially meet with the American counterparts, not to discuss a serious item on their discussion agenda, but to meet for meeting's sake.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's move into a rather bigger gesture. In a related move, after Seoul has removed its anti-North loudspeakers, Pyongyang dismantled some of its 40-plus along the border as well. Dr. Berry, do you think this could be a sign of proportional de-escalation?
I don't read too much into it, but at least President Lee acknowledged it today. And even he said, we don't know exactly how many they've removed. And I think those things they're fungible. They can take them down, they can put them back pretty easily. But it's not a bad sign. I think what President Trump will want to see, and I'm sure President Lee will mention it when they meet at the White House, is there can be incremental changes, but they should be in one direction. There shouldn't be flip-flopping, there shouldn't be zigzagging and so forth. So it's potentially a good sign, but it's just one of many that we have to see along the road over the next few months.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's also touch upon the leadership signals in Pyongyang. Kim Jong-un's daughter, of course, Kim Joo, has apparently made around 39 public appearances since late 2022, including 24 at military events, often beside her father. Dr. Go, do you think this is a clear signal from the North as Kim Joo being the successor of Kim Jong-un?
Well, I wouldn't say clear signal. I think the clear signal will be North Korea declaring that Kim Joo is indeed the legitimate and sole successor to Kim Jong-un, but that hasn't happened yet. But I think it's probably more convincing signal that she's clearly in line for succession. Maybe she's at the head of the line right now to succeed Kim Jong-un if something might happen to him. So clearly the signals are mounting. I think the way she interacts in this kind of public events. So these events are important to cover and also to see whether Kim Joo is indeed is lining up to be anointed as the sole successor to Kim Jong-un. He said these are protocol events, so it's very highly theatrical, but at the same time organized. And a lot of these things reflects the power hierarchy within the North Korean regime. And just reading those signs, how Kim Jong-un interacts with the senior party and military officials, how she essentially shakes hands with, say, visiting foreign dignitaries and ambassadors posted to Pyongyang. This all add information on regarding Kim Jong-un's status within the regime, and they all seem to point towards the fact that she's indeed being considered to be a successor to Kim Jong-un. So, for instance, the way the regime address her, even though her name is not being broadcast loudly, she's being described as somebody very dear. And also another very important point here is the positioning, physical positioning in this kind of events, because North Korea, it's a very, I would say, they really delve into symbols, so power symbols. And here the positioning relative to the leader in North Korea, which happens to be her father, very much matters very much. So the physical distance between Kim Joo-e and Kim Jong-un also connotes how close the two are. Not only that, but also how close to power she is in that. And it seems that, at least from looking at the photographs that the North Korean regime distributes to the world officially, it shows that the Kim Joo-e might be the person who's closest to Kim Jong-un, even closer than her own mother, the First Lady of North Korea, Lee Seol-ju. So all these signals seem to show that she's being groomed to be the successor, even though the official confirmation of that it's not unlikely to come anytime soon because she's too young for now. Right. She's only 12, and chances that they'll be waiting many years, I would say, until she turns into officially an adult, probably 18 or 19, which is 7 years from now. So there are a lot of time for an alternative to take place. So it remains to be seen. But for today, right now, there all signs point towards the fact that she's being groomed up to be a potential successor to Kim Jong-un.
Right, that really does seem to be evident given her footages. Now, let's shift a little bit to the Seoul-Washington summit upcoming on August 25th, Dr. Go. It will be the first of which between President Trump and President Lee Jae-myung, and North Korea will be high on the agenda, people say. How might Trump's interest in talks with Kim Jong-un reshape inter-Korean diplomacy moving forward?
Well, I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic between the President-elect Lee Jae-myung and President Trump, because right now, on the surface at least, the North Korea policy directions on Seoul and Washington seem to be completely aligned. Clearly, President Trump is different from his predecessor, President Biden, in the sense that he wants to engage Kim Jong-un in a meaningful conversation, and then President Lee Jae-myung clearly wants to support such initiative. So, but the problem here is that North Korea isn't really North Korea. North Korea has expressed very strongly and in no uncertain terms that they are not interested in dialogue, especially one that concerns North Korea's denuclearization. And this is something that something that Washington hasn't really clarified yet. Not a couple of months ago, even the State Department issued that U.S. policy towards North Korea is still about denuclearization. So even though we just discussed how North Korea made a tentative signals that denoting that they might be interested in dialogue with the United States, this is the reason why that prospect is not certain yet. So I think in that sense, I think President Lee has some space to maneuver here, role to fulfill in this case. So clearly President Lee is very invested in resuming inter-Korean relations that has been completely broken down during President Yoon's tenure. So I think he'll try to convince President Trump to be more proactive, to come out with a more detailed message and much more consistent to draw North Korea into the negotiation table again.
Right. Of course, South Korea's position on this specific issue would be very important as well, as we have been concerned about the so-called Korea passing when talks between President Trump and Kim Jong-un restart. Dr. Barry, how real is that risk of South Korea passing, and how can Seoul avoid being actually sidelined?
I don't know how you avoid it. I was in Seoul during the Kim Dae-jung summit with Kim Jong-il, and in perusing the internet, I noticed how Chuck Cartman, who was, I believe, then the U.S. envoy to the North Korea or envoy to North Korea in terms of negotiations, he was quite disjointed and quite, perturbed. He pretty much said it in so many ways. Why are you leaving the U.S. out? And I was surprised. I had so much respect for Chuck. But this is just, it's embedded in the cake. It's baked in the cake. Same thing in the June 2019 summit at the DMZ. Although President Moon got to shake hands with Kim Jong-un, when they went in the building to have the meeting, it was just Trump and Kim Jong-un. And I just don't know how you avoid it. And I think Trump is taking the same approach with Putin, which is, well, Zelensky can have his own meeting with Putin later on, but he's going to arrange the deal. So, unfortunately, the U.S. thinks its peers, Russia and China primarily, are the ones who should make the big decisions. So I don't know how South Korea can avoid it. I just saw on your telecast that President Lee's visit is really only going to be 24th through the 26th, and the only full day being the 25th. And frankly, the way things are going in Washington and all the nutty things going on, I say you do better, spending as little time as possible and get out of there. And if you can make a trip to Japan, that's great. That'll do more for your country. But right now, let the U.S. just do what it's going to do, and you make the best of it. I just think that and I think meeting the Vietnamese leader is probably one of the most important things that South Korea could do. It sends a lot of messages to the rest of East Asia.
Right, so we'll have to look for more signals in the upcoming summit between President Trump and President Lee. That's moving forward. Now, we are also being concerned about Russia's visits to North Korea. It has been increasing to 2,772 in quarter two of 2025, the highest since the year 2011. Dr. Go, does this secretly point to actual deployments, and what's the impact?
So I think the Russians are trying to hide the fact that there's an increased number of North Koreans staying in Russia, entering Russia these days. And the reason is because we already know there's a sizable North Korean contingent fighting alongside the Russians in Russia. But then right now, Russia is engaged in the summer offensive against Ukraine, and they're putting a lot of effort into this offensive because they probably believe this is probably the last meaningful offensive, military offensive that Russia can engage against Ukraine before there's some sort of settlement or ceasefire agreement is reached this year. Clearly, there's a first attempt on that would be the upcoming meeting summit between President Trump and Vladimir Putin in Alaska. So I don't think a ceasefire agreement will be reached at that summit, but then there'll be subsequent meetings, and it's likely that this war is entering the final phase. Well, paraphrasing Churchill, maybe it is not the beginning of the end, end of the beginning of the end, but might be the end of the beginning. Or maybe I'm not saying this right in this context, but so anyways, we are entering like a terminal phase, hopefully. But then I think if the Russians are trying to maximize this opportunity, they need all the help they can get, and North Korea has been very helpful in this regard. And then, but the thing is that North Koreans are also running out of manpower that are deployed currently in Russia. So they are probably sending more troops, and this is very problematic because the new front that North Koreans are going to be deployed in will be away from the Russian territory. So the last year, this year, North Koreans were fully engaged in combat in the Russian territory, in recovering the Russian territory of Kursk. But then this time around, the offensive is being waged against the Ukrainian territory proper. And if the North Koreans indeed participate in combat against Ukraine, this is going to represent a major escalation, and that could even affect the ceasefire discussion that's going on. And so I think it's going to complicate things. Any signal that the North Koreans are going to participate in combat in Ukrainian territory is going to be interpreted as escalation, not just by the United States, but also by the European countries. So I think this is something that the Russians are trying to avoid, and I think this is the reason why they're hiding key figures regarding the number of North Koreans in Russia today.
So it's a very important phase in the situation. Now, before we let you go, Dr. Barry, finally, Pyongyang has reportedly agreed to send 6,000 more military personnel to Russia by year's end. When combining all of these, what do you think is the single biggest factor that for South Korea in the coming months?
Well, first of all, the military personnel, they're there. They're going to be there, as I understand it, for demining, for all sorts of reconstruction efforts. There's a long article of interview with some defectors on the BBC News website today of North Koreans who were working on construction projects in Russia and how they were treated by their North Korean supervisors. So all of this clues us into the fact that this is a relationship that is of utmost importance to Kim Jong-un, and he's not fully free to act on his own compared to 2019. So although Putin would not go so far as to tell him how to conduct or order him to conduct diplomacy in a certain way, he will certainly suggest, and I think to answer your question about the next 6 months, if even for 5 minutes Putin and Trump discussed a certain understanding about how to deal with North Korea, and Putin were to make a suggestion, Donald, if you did this and this and this, I think Chairman Kim would probably follow through, and I would certainly encourage him to do X, Y, and Z. I think that can be very, very telling, and that's why I say, if indeed the Alaska meeting takes place, and if it's very odd because you'd figure by Tuesday we would know the location. I'm speculating Anchorage, and we would know a lot more of the details, but we don't. And this is typically what happens with President Trump. And I'm not saying it won't happen, but it's the kind of thing where he can also decide, well, just as he did with the Singapore summit with Kim Jong-un, he postponed it when he felt a little bit of offensiveness coming from the North Korean government towards Vice President Mike Pence. So we don't know. But if it takes place on Friday, and if they discuss, even for 5-10 minutes, North Korea, which Trump certainly sees as just simply being part of the larger problem of Ukraine, and Trump is trying to appear that he's rolled up his sleeves and is trying to work with the man who counts, Vladimir Putin, to solve it, the byproduct of that could be to free up Kim Jong-un to do certain things that would be in his interest, but on the foundation of saying, we are clearly, as you, Mr. President, have acknowledged, are a nuclear power. We have a lot of nuclear weapons. But we're interested in discussions. But if you don't want to have a conversation, if you don't want to negotiate about anything, we'll be just fine. We're very content and happy with our relationship with our current allies, Russia and China.
Right, so definitely we will have to keep close tabs on the upcoming summit between the two leaders. We will definitely do that. But as for now, we'll have to conclude our discussion at this point. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights tonight, Dr. Go.
My pleasure.
And of course, Dr. Barry, we appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.